Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Awakening Heart Community of Mindful Living here at Dallas Meditation Center. So glad you could join us tonight. And we come to you each Sunday evening at 5 o'clock for our usual Sunday meditation and talk. And in addition to that, Dallas Meditation Center has 10 things throughout the week, other events each day and evening throughout the week. So please do check us out. And I'll welcome you all to check in if you'd like in the chat window on YouTube. Say hello just so we know you're here. So it's not quite this one-way path. So we get a little bit of feedback from you too, because we miss seeing you. And so it's really great to have you join us here. And so if you're new to this and just happen to find us either now live or happen to catch it later, just know that our meditation is intentionally beginner friendly and it's easy to just follow along. And we'll give some instruction along the way, but it's pretty easy guided meditation and then followed by a talk. And we're continuing with our practice this month of creativity. And the topic this month is photography, the topic this week is photography. And we'll be joined by Kelly Moyle to talk to us about that. So my name is Cornell, glad to be here. And Bobby will be our facilitator tonight with Anne as bellmaster. So let's begin with 3 sounds of the bell. And just sit back, find that quiet space in your own home or wherever you're at. You're even welcome to lie down if you like. So enjoy. So glad you could be here.
Hello, dear friends. Welcome. As Cornell said, we're so happy that some of you are joining us tonight. This way of meeting is definitely better than not meeting at all. And I want you to know that we are thinking about when we'd be able to reopen, but let me be clear with you that it does not look like it's going to happen in July. And then we just have to take it, a week at a time, a month at a time, but know that we miss you. We love you and we would love to have you here. So with that, I'm going to read the opening affirmation and then we'll move into the rest of our service. So this is the Awakening Heart opening affirmation. Noble community, we gather here now to honor the way of peace and nonviolence, the way of wisdom and compassion, the way of joy and beauty, in solidarity with one another, with all humanity, and with all life on earth. Friends on the path, we gather here now to deepen our solidity like a mountain and to renew our freshness like a flower. Through mindful sitting and walking, mindful singing and breathing, and mindful speaking and listening. Family of awakening, we gather here now to celebrate the one infinite light that shines through many religions and many cultures, to cultivate the wisdom of our many teachers, both ancestral and contemporary, and to affirm the capacity within ourselves and all persons of every race, gender, orientation, and tradition to realize full and complete enlightenment. So as Cornell said, we're really inviting you to check in the chat box. And maybe Cornell, you could welcome anybody that has chatted. Thank you.
So yes, I will. Hello to Mike and Heather, Miles, Billy, Luis, James, Nico, Christy's here, Paul. Yeah, so welcome everyone. And as is typing a lot, oh, Catherine's here too. And as is typing a lot, just in case we do get booted from YouTube, which happened a few weeks ago, just know that I'll try to start another YouTube video. Go to our live channel and you can find us live there if we get booted. And then if it happens again, we'll just come over to Zoom. And I've already put that link in the chat box. So you'll find it there. And that's where we will meet afterwards for our sharing and discussion. So thank you. Back over to Bobby.
So typically after the check-in and that sort of thing, we do a song. So we have been doing the Medicine Buddha chant, but I think tonight I want to sing our little practice song called Breathing In, Breathing Out. And if you're in your house and somewhere where you can feel free to sing, I hope you'll join me. So let's sing Breathing In, Breathing Out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. I am blooming as a flower. I am fresh as the dew. I am solid as a mountain. I am firm as the earth. I am free. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. I am water reflecting what is real, what is true. And I feel there is space deep inside of me. I am free, I am free, I am free. That's been a real help to me this week. So I hope it helps you as well. So during our sitting meditation, we're going to follow the pattern that we have followed many Sundays. I will read a sentence or two and then give you a word or two to reflect on as you breathe. So typically, let me just give you the first line that I'm going to use. And it is, seeing my eyes, I breathe in. Smiling to my eyes, I breathe out. And then the words that you use as you're breathing in and breathing out. Seeing my eyes is the breathing in. Smiling is the breathing out. And you will have a little bit of a reminder with a bell. So that'll be your reminder to begin your practice. I think I'm going to scoop the bell a little bit closer to you so you can hear it better. And then we'll do our seated meditation. So before we begin our meditation, we want to be sure that we're comfortable. You want to let your spine line up with your hips so that your head is well balanced. And then notice if there's any tension in your shoulders. That's the place where many of us carry a lot of our burdens, our worries. So as you breathe out, see if you can let go of some of that tension that you might find in your shoulders and in your upper back. And then begin to pay attention to your breath. There is no need to try to control the breath. We're just going to observe the breath. Just watch your body breathe. Letting your hands rest in your lap. If you're sitting in a chair, you want your feet to be on the floor, not crossed. So let's begin our guided meditation. Seeing my eyes, I breathe in. Smiling to my eyes, I breathe out. Seeing my eyes, smiling. Seeing my eyes, smiling. Seeing my eyes are brought about by the coming together of the four elements, I breathe in. Seeing my eyes cease to be with the dilution of the four elements, I breathe out. Eyes made of four elements. Elements dissolved, eyes cease to be. Eyes made of four elements. Elements dissolved, eyes cease to be. Seeing my eyes containing the sunshine, I breathe in. Seeing my eyes containing the cloud, I breathe out. Eyes contain sunshine, Eyes contain clouds. Eyes contain sunshine. Eyes contain clouds. Seeing my eyes containing the earth, I breathe in. Seeing my eyes containing the air, I breathe out. Eyes contain earth. Eyes contain air. Eyes contain earth. Eyes contain air. Seeing my eyes containing the whole cosmos, I breathe in. Seeing my eyes present in everything in the cosmos, I breathe out. Eyes contain cosmos. Eyes in everything. Eyes contain cosmos. Eyes in everything. Seeing my eyes as interbeing elements, I breathe in. Seeing all in the cosmos as interbeing elements, I breathe out. Eyes enter are, all in cosmos enter is. Eyes enter are, all in cosmos enter is. Seeing the all in the one, I breathe in. Seeing the one in the many, I breathe out. All in one, one in all things. All in one, all in one in all things. Seeing the one as basic to the all, I breathe in. Seeing all things as basic to the one, I breathe out. One as basis of all things as basis of one. One as basis of all things as basis of one. Seeing the birthless nature of my eyes, I breathe in. Seeing the deathless nature of my eyes, I breathe out. Eyes birthless, eyes deathless. Eyes birthless, eyes deathless. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace. Brahma Vihara Maitri. Brahma Vihara Maitri. Brahma Vihara Karuna. Brahma Vihara Karuna. Brahma Vihara Mudita. Brahma Vihara Mudita. Brahma Vihara Upeksha. Brahma Upeksha. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace. May all beings. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace. Thank you, dear friends. I realized as I was about the third part of this meditation that it was all about the eyes, which is perfect for a week on photography. Sometimes, you're just guided to do things and then later you find out why. So, yeah. And at the same time, this meditation is also a teaching about interdependence, how nothing can exist without everything else. So our whole being depends on our connection to the cosmos, and the cosmos depends on us to manifest. So I hope you enjoyed that meditation. So the next thing we do, excuse me a minute, is the homage to the three jewels in our Refuge Chant. So rather than chant these, recently we've just been reading them. And so we'll invite the bell, and then we'll do the Refuge Chant to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. We take refuge in the awakening heart of infinite light, that which shows us the way in this life. We take refuge in the awakening path of infinite light, the way of understanding and of love. We take refuge in the awakening community of infinite light, those who live in harmony and awareness. So I want to welcome Kelly to be with us this evening. Kelly sent, I hope you watched the little video that she sent, really inspiring to just be present when we're in nature or in our homes or wherever, and then enjoy the moment, capture the moment, because it has brought us some joy or inspired us or whatever. And so I know Kelly has a lot to share with us because she's been doing some training. I don't remember what it's called, but something about being a master in nature. She'll tell you what it is. Anyway, welcome so much, Kelly. I'm really glad to have you here tonight.
Hello, everybody. I am so honored to be here tonight. And thank you, Bobby, for the invitation, as well as the beautiful, that guided meditation could not have been more perfect. As you were reading it, I was like, oh yeah. Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. So grateful and so glad that you guys could join us tonight. I really appreciate you taking time for yourself to sit with us. As Bobby said, even though we aren't able to meet in person, I think it is very important for us to still stay connected as any way that we can. And at this point, meeting online is a great way to do that. As Bobby mentioned, and potentially if you guys had watched my video of my invitation for you to experiment with some mindful photography this week. And if you didn't get the opportunity, that's okay. You've got plenty of time. You can always pick up your phone or just any camera will do. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, like I said in my video. Bobby had mentioned I did complete some training recently. I did get some certification in nature and forest therapy. So it's a guided walk process that's similar to and inspired by Shinrin Yoku, which is a practice that's done in Japan. And I can talk more about that on another day, another time. But in terms of mindful photography, it does kind of weave in a little bit in that for me. I probably have been practicing mindful photography it's probably been about 10 years now. And now it's just starting to seem like it's starting to get a little bit more mainstream. Another word or reference that you may hear about it would be contemplative photography or also slow photography, what most of us are probably familiar with when we think of photography is magazines and, the perfect lighting, the perfect aperture, ISO, all those terms, and some of you may have an art or photography background that you can relate to some of those terms that I just mentioned. And those are all wonderful and they're great. However, if we think about our mindfulness practice, we want to settle into that moment. If we're thinking about the lighting, if we're thinking about the angle, if we're thinking about the structure, the composure, or the content, are we in the moment? Probably not, right? So I'm going to cover a few things today on what mindful photography, actually the practice of it itself, what it does for us. Emily Campbell mentioned in one of the articles I was reading, just to kind of see what's out there in the mainstream today for mindful photography, that's saying that mindful photography is really a manifestation of mindfulness in itself, because we actually have a picture, something tangible that we can actually look at from that moment that we had that mindfulness enlightenment, or just that moment that we were able to connect with whatever it is. And Dorothea Lange, this is a quote that I really kind of resonated with. She said, "The camera is an instrument that teaches people to see without a camera." So you just think about that for a moment. And I think our mindfulness practice really does come with that, if just using a camera, what happens. So first of all, as Bobby started with the meditation today, photography is about seeing. It really enlightens or brings our sense of sight to a whole different level when we photograph, or when we're out thinking or deciding, or we're in our house and we're in a moment. Maybe we're at a party with our family and we want to capture maybe something candid, or we want to get everybody together. We want to capture, we're deeply seeing and feeling joy in that moment. Maybe we're resonating with something, or it could even be something that we're grieving. We've been through a lot, as we know, with quarantine and everything right now. So I think this practice also is very helpful for us as another way to practice our mindfulness during this time, is to allow ourselves to be in that moment with whatever it is, but also what's around us. So deeply seeing is one of the things that mindful photography, it encourages us and it heightens that awareness to see what's around us. So the funny thing that comes to mind when I think about this is, have you ever been to a place like probably half a dozen times, and you all of a sudden notice something that's probably been there every time, but you never really saw it before? That happens to me all the time. It's like, I've been to this place. Now how come I never saw that over there? And it could just be something in that background, right? And when I say background, when we go someplace, even like a garden, right? We have those ornamental things that pop out at us. Maybe that bright red rose, or that beautiful pink lotus, or something that really pops in that moment. But what we sometimes forget to see is all that stuff that's behind it. All that framework that's behind it, all of those little pieces that are bringing that, making it pop, making us being able to really see it, and not necessarily see those other things. So that's another thing that I love, is that it kind of really makes you kind of notice those things that maybe might not pop out to you to begin with, because you're starting to practice deeply seeing in that moment when you have that camera and practicing mindful photography. So an insight into ourselves is another thing that mindful photography can bring. And how it does that is when you're in that moment and you're looking through, maybe you're walking and you're looking through your camera. No, that's not quite happening with me. You keep walking and then you're starting to go, but if the weather was better, or maybe if the lighting was better right here, because I just can't seem to get anything, or well, if I was a little taller, I could probably get that shot right there. Are we in our mindfulness? Probably not. But how often do we do this in our life in general, where we just have that pattern maybe of we're in the moment and we immediately maybe have an aversion, or maybe we start to cling in the moment where we're really having a great time and we're really enjoying ourselves and we don't want it to pass. It really kind of just brings that insight, into ourselves, and maybe some of those patterns that we might have that we may not have noticed. Just sitting there with a camera and noticing these things that may arise, right, when we're out just doing some mindful practice. And one of the things that I was reading about this, specifically about insight to ourselves, I really, really enjoyed this. It was a professional photographer that mentioned, in that moment, the magic is not only that we get to see what's there, but as well as how we're holding it. And it really just made me stop and think, how are we holding our moments? Do we have expectations in that moment? Are we anticipating something in that moment? And am I trying to control maybe what's going on in the moment? So all of these things can play in just by practicing that mindful photography, because all of those little things are all part of what we're focusing on. Where's our attention being drawn? And what arises in ourself all at that same time? So another thing that comes up for us is, and I love this, Bobby, that the meditation that you talked about inner being and the inner being elements. And mindful photography does do that for us, because we are in that moment. And you may remember from my video that, I said, let go of any judgment, any expectations, anything that may be going on, and just find something that you're connecting with, right? And take that picture. And when we're forming that connection, it's that inner being that's going on, because we are connecting in that moment with whatever is in that moment. And then from that, we are establishing a relationship. So when we're capturing that moment, we're in connection, we're in relationship, we're interbeing in that moment with whatever is surrounding us. And again, the more we practice this stuff, another benefit is that our brains will start, and our bodies too, will all start to rewire. If you hear neuroscientists talk about neuroplasticity, if I can say the word, and how our brain has that capability to evolve. And this is one of those practices that can help our brain to evolve by literally rebuilding patterns and changing what we're paying attention to, what we're aware of, and how we're shifting our focus in that moment. Because when we even just take a camera and walk, maybe we're practicing some mindful walking, and we just shift, and look and see what we're aware of. And maybe something draws us in. Well, we focus and shift our attention. And if it's something that's delighting us, inspiring us, we continue to focus our attention on that. So guess what happens? The more we do that, the more we're turning our attention, our focus onto things that are bringing us joy, that are bringing us inspiration, that are bringing us happiness. So that pattern starts to build and the groove starts to get deeper and deeper, just like in our meditation practice. Just those little 10, 15, 20-minute practices every day, we're building and we're rewiring in our bodies and in our mind. Because remember, whatever goes on up here happens in our body. So remembering that when you're another benefit, basically, of mindful photography. On my time, making sure I'm keeping in track here. So the other thing that I love too about inner being, the meditation that Bobby mentioned had to do with inner being elements. And so for me, nature is one of my big things. And I mentioned it's probably been about 10 years since I've been doing mindful photography, and most of that has been with nature. Nature in the Force and Therapy Guide training that I did, which is why I took the training, is it has been therapy for me. And I wanted to explore that on a deeper level. So in this 10-year time span that I was mentioning, it was just getting out and taking pictures. And at first I did have that whole experience of, oh, this is a bad angle. Oh, this isn't right. And I could feel how I was trying to control the moment, rather than interbe with what was there and as it is. And so I started, the more I practiced practice, the more some of those things started showing up for me, giving me that clarity in the moment to be less attached. Don't cling, don't judge, just take that picture when you feel that connection in that moment, to just pick it up and take it. And it was amazing on how the pictures started to just evolve on their own. And a picture tells a story, right? And not just for me was I having such a beautiful connection in that moment, over and over, because I was taking photographs of a property that I lived on, and pretty much a sunrise or a sunset was kind of my practice. It just became this practice that I was doing every day to go out there, providing the weather was okay. And these things started happening. And the more that I was taking them, and the more I was spending that time with myself and being with those elements, the trees, the water, the grass, and then the wildlife that would come and visit, it just became so, I just, the empathy that was created as well, of look at these birds and how they're having to survive in the weather, or they're, having to find a place to nest. The turtles were digging their little nests in all these different areas. The squirrels were trying to bury their nuts for the winter so they'd have food. And then you see them also digging them up so they had something to eat. So I started to at least have that really interbeing connection, to the point that all these other things started happening for me. And taking that practice, because it became so ingrained in that groove, like I mentioned about the neuroplasticity and rewiring, came so deep that it started just spilling out into the rest of my life, just like my mindfulness practice. So I started having more clarity, able to connect easier on levels at work and in what I was doing with my students at the time in teaching yoga. And nature was also my therapist. So when I was struggling and had that grief or had that confusion or frustration in life, to go and just to sit and be, and moments would strike and I would just be able to connect and allow whatever needed to be and sit with it, with what is, and just accept it. So mindful photography has been such, as you can tell from how I'm speaking, I'm just very passionate about it. It's been a big impact on my life, and the fruit of it has still, for myself, anytime I look back at those pictures that I did take, because I am no longer on that property that I used to photograph, it still brings me back to that same magical moment within myself. And I can recollect, and I have that deep seed. It's like that seed got watered, right? Every time I was practicing, those seeds got watered over and over. So I can still feel the fruit of those seeds that I watered just from that practice at that time. And the other benefit has been sharing that practice with other people, sharing those photographs. I have a friend that was recently diagnosed with MS. And I've been sharing some of those pictures because we had photography in common. So I started sharing some of that with him, and the gift of what it has done for him, because he's isolated, obviously, with the quarantine, and much more so because of the MS at this point. And just to hear, what it's been giving him in the moments that, maybe he's struggling, that it provides him that stillness and that calmness just to see it. So there's another benefit that I just wanted to express that wasn't necessarily anything that I really read about, but I've experienced it in my life, and just watching and seeing what it's doing for other people to share it. So even though we may be having our own mindfulness practice in that moment, is to also remember it benefits all. And it may not even need to be sharing that photograph with somebody. Just the fact that you're doing it, just like we do our mindfulness and our meditation, that it has that radiating effect, and to remember it does. And the beauty of what happens with you just radiates out even further. So the last portion that I wanted to share was just the gratitude that comes through. I mentioned that the empathy, obviously, that comes through with practicing this practice, which in turn also brings the compassion So you start to have, in my situation with nature, for example, having more compassion for the animals and the trees and just everything around me. And the same thing can be with anything that you're with, your family, your friends, and it could be just this current universe that we're living in, this community and world that we're living in. So there's just so many different levels of benefits that I could go on and on about it, because it's just wonderful. But gratitude, like I said, is also one of the other benefits that happens with mindful photography, because you start to really, because you're having that connection, right? A regular practice, having that connection of whatever it is, in my case, nature, but with your family, with your pets. If you start having that daily, or once a week, or just that, keeping that practice up, you'll start to just see the richness that happens, the blooming that happens, the evolution that happens in your consciousness, as well as what's all around you, and how things change and shift and grow. And you'll start to notice that deeper sense behind things that maybe you not necessarily would have seen before. And when I say that, I mean, when you just look at a picture per se, and you maybe see that main focus in the center of it, but what all is behind it. And I know I've mentioned this on another level already, but the translation for that in our everyday life is we start to not just see the drama that's going on in front of us, or the ecstatic happiness that's going on in front of us in that moment. We may also get that understanding of what's behind it. So what's behind that happiness that brought this person to this point that they are just celebrating, understanding it at a different level, seeing those other elements and interbeing with that, having that empathy and compassion in that moment, and being able to celebrate with that person. But also, if there's been any trauma or things that are going on, that we see all of this in front of us, we can have that moment of mindfulness and awareness to be able to go beyond that and see behind it, rather than get the distraction that's happening up front. So that's the other perk that just continues to give. And as we know, if you've been practicing mindfulness for a long time, this is some of the benefits that we already experience within our mindfulness practice. But just taking mindful photography in its own little sense, and taking a look at just a little practice, maybe every day or once a week, adding that into maybe walking or what other practices that you may be doing, can add a whole nother level of benefit to your life overall. And maybe you need just something different to do. And the other part that I did mention in my video was playing. It's so important for us to just get out and play. And photography is a great way to do that, especially with digital, right? I mean, it doesn't cost us, aside from having the phone and paying for a service, to just go out and you can take pictures. Some of the suggestions that were made by a couple of the practitioners of mindfulness photography mentioned, limiting maybe the amount of photos that you take. Because if you're taking a lot, then you may be caught up in trying to catch the moment perfectly. So again, there's the distraction. So maybe limiting yourself to 3 or 5 when you take a practice walk. Just that, and accepting what is, and then also maybe contemplating, looking at maybe what your favorite one was, and reflecting on that and seeing, why did I take this picture? And what is it that I'm connecting with in that moment? And sometimes, like I mentioned in the video, sometimes we may not know, because there is a deeper consciousness within all of us that is connecting, that is trying to reach out to our surroundings, because as the meditation that Bobby mentioned, we are all one. And so we're trying to, connect to those inner elements with each other. Our earth elements, our water elements, our fire elements, they're all around us. We're all just in different forms. And photography is another way that we can connect with all of those things around us, getting outside of ourselves and seeing how we are all part of that oneness. We're all made up of the same things, just different shapes and forms. So it's just been a very wonderful practice, and I can't not encourage it more. I will be at some point, because as I mentioned, I did get my certification in nature and forest therapy, but I would like to also bring forth, depending of course on how our world goes, when we'll be able to get together in groups, or even maybe just 6 feet distance groups, and be able to do a mindful photography practice would be great. So please let us know if that's something that you may be interested in doing. I did have one last quote that I wanted to mention was, in mindful photography, we open to what's around us without bias, filters, and fears that often cloud the mind and connect to the richness being offered in that present moment. I hope that this will bring you something different, something to play with, and something to look forward to in what we're currently living in and anytime. And I thank you so much for joining us today, and I will step aside and hand the mic back over to Bobby. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly. That was amazing. I'm inspired. I want to go take a picture right now. Yeah, thank you so much. One of the things that really struck a chord with me, there were many, but one thing was the fact that when we are in that moment and it's inspirational, it's bringing us joy, or we're seeing something that hasn't been noticed before. But in all of those instances, we are watering those seeds in our store consciousness. And I know that was, you did mention that, but that was the one thing that kind of struck a chord with me. It's so easy in this time of COVID and so many people being ill. It's so easy to water the seeds of anxiety and worry and fear. And so just the idea that we could take a walk and be inspired by something different, water some seeds of joy and play and connection. Yeah, I just really appreciate that. So thank you so much. So I want everybody to hang on and come back to Zoom. I'm sure you want to, maybe you have a question for Kelly, or you would like to say something to her. So when we cross over to the Zoom platform, be sure to come with us so that you can share. We have received a few photographs from people. There was a cute bunny that Paul shared, a bunny in his front yard or in the yard somewhere. Jen Lee sent pictures of squirrels. So they're seeing the little creatures. And Catherine sent a picture that was inspired as she was listening to the music track that Jessica made. So there are a lot of ways to combine these things. Yeah, we can put things together in ways that maybe you hadn't thought of before, just using creativity and imagination, things that will water those seeds of creativity and spontaneity and love. So I want to make a couple of announcements. It is very important, and we say this every week, but because we are not meeting in person, it's very easy to think, well, everything's going okay, so maybe I don't need to contribute since I'm not there. But the thing is, we're still here. And life goes on and bills go on. And I'm sure you all know that. So please help us to maintain the meditation center and all of the things that we can offer to you. Even offering online is not free. So if you would and contribute whatever you're comfortable contributing, we know that not everybody is in a position to donate, but if you can, please do. I promise you that you will feel gratitude for doing that. It's a gratitude practice, the practice of dana or giving. I think I'm going to, let me just say that next month, July, our theme will be peacefully together. And so I'm looking forward to hearing back from one of the monastics at Magnolia Grove. Hopefully she will join us during the month. And some of you may know Ashley Wilkerson, young woman that was a big part of DMC when we were on Floyd Road. She's an actress, a poet, an activist, and she's going to join us next month. So stay tuned. The next month will be very interesting, I think, and insightful. And I just also want to remind you and encourage you to continue writing gathas, poems, haiku, continue drawing and coloring mandalas, continue making music, do all of the things that we've kind of tried to inspire you to do this month. So it's never too late. You can do it now, anytime. So let's close with our closing chant, and then we will all go over to Zoom and enjoy asking questions or more comment with one another. So let's invite 2 sounds of the bell and do our closing chant. Countless beings we vow to free, ceaseless afflictions we vow to end, limitless truth doors we vow to open, the deepest paths of awakening we vow to realize. Thank you, dear friends. We'll see you in a few minutes on Zoom.